What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another season of my show, The H Panel, the show where we bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and I'm filming these in late 2020, but you guys will get these at the beginning of 2021. Welcome to a new year. Me, just like a lot of you, are hoping that this year is a little different because 2020, I don't even need to say it. It was super confusing, and everyone knows that. But you know what? We've made it to this point. We pushed through. We came out the other end. You guys are doing great. And hopefully, just hopefully, 2021 is a little better. If you're watching this, if you've stuck with me for 3 seasons, including the first couple episodes where I was trying to figure stuff out, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, guys. It means so much to me that I get to keep doing this for you. This is honestly, I don't mean to sound cliche here. This is a legit dream come true. So thank you again. Thank you. If you're watching this right now or listening to it on a podcast platform, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, give 5 stars, the whole spiel there. And yeah, I'll keep making podcasts and hopefully you guys like them. So this season of my show, I've got 2 questions that I'm really going to be highlighting for you guys that I'm going to be talking to the guests about. And let me just pull them up right here. So the first one is kind of where do we go from here? How do we stop these numbers of reported mental illness, substance abuse, domestic abuse? How do we stop these numbers from increasing like we've seen during the pandemic? And then the other question that I've got, because I've interacted with a lot of people, and maybe some of you are watching this right now, who are feeling really stressed that they didn't really do anything, significant during these last 8 or 9 months. And significant, I don't mean that literally. I mean that based on us comparing ourselves to people who might have done something in those 8-9 months. And the reason I'm asking this question is because, I myself, I also feel that pressure sometimes. I feel, am I doing enough during this pandemic? When in reality, guys, this was traumatic for a lot of us. Actually, for all of us, there was some sort of trauma for everyone in this scenario. We've never been through this. It's okay to take a little bit of rest. It's okay to try to get your life back together. It's completely fine that you're not making $1 million right now, or you released a brand new book, or did anything of the sort. So that's a question that I'm going to be asking the guests because I really want to emphasize that for people listening, because I know that's a thought that's going on in a lot of people's heads. Mine as well, guys. I'm right there with you with that. Also, the layout of these videos are going to be a little different for season 3 and probably onward. I realized with a little bit of reflection these last couple months that I edited my videos a lot. And it's not that there's anything wrong with my videos. It's just I think I was striving for perfection too much. And so now I'm just going to let it ride out. I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. My transitions sometimes are questionable at best. There are some awkward moments. But you know what? That's all part of human discussion. It happens. Not every discussion is perfect. And I'm trying to stress that I myself am also not perfect. And I felt like editing the videos wasn't really giving you guys my authentic self. So from now on, I'm just going to let it ride out. You guys are going to see the real me. You're going to see the little steps and stutters. And sometimes I forget questions. Actually, I forget questions a lot. So you'll see that too. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. If not, I understand. But that's how I'm just going to do it from now on. Because you know what? We're all human, man. We mess up. And that's okay. We can still make a bomb-ass video and have a nice discussion because of it. So I hope that's okay with you guys. So for season 1 of this show, I've got on Erin Mac as my first guest. Erin is a life coach and a consultant who's been in the game for 16 years. She's also been an entrepreneur for 21 years. In Erin's practice, she mentors business leaders on how to overcome and prevent feelings such as overwhelm, worry, and anxiety. And she bases a lot of her practices and the things she helps clients with based on her own journey with her anxiety disorder, in which she discovered strategies and techniques that really worked for her and have developed great results for her clients. I'm very excited to show you guys this episode. I felt very good hanging up the call with her. This was a really good discussion, And I want to thank Erin again for coming on because I had a great time. So without further ado, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. Sit back and enjoy. Peace. One last thing, I'm gonna play the full intro song. I haven't done it for any episodes yet, but honestly, Jordy, shout out to him. He'll be back on for season 3. I freaking love this intro, and I think it deserves the full length. You know what? Special occasion. It's season 3, guys. We gotta have a little fun with it, right? So enjoy the little intro produced by Jordy Burrell. Check him out. If you really enjoy the song, check him out. I've got links to all his stuff in the bios. So enjoy.
Hey there.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Where are you from again?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oregon. How's the pandemic over down there?
We just shut down again for 2 to 4 weeks.
Oh, second lockdown?
Yeah, just there's no more hospital beds, so
Mm,
just got to do what you got to do so that people can stay safe and
right.
not overcrowd
Yeah,
our
seriously.
hospital system.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the same thing up here. We're going into a second one, I think.
Oh, where are you at?
Ontario, up in
Okay.
Canada. Yeah.
Hmm.
So Toronto's already in a lockdown, and then the surrounding areas are kind of in a red yellow zone. So we'll see. But I mean, once Christmas hits, like people are gonna go see people.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of expected after Thanksgiving, which I know you guys had yours already a while back, that there'll be more cases, and they were expecting that, and so the hospitals have triage units and tents outside of the hospital buildings itself, and just trying to prepare to make sure that it can handle everything that's coming through.
Yeah, no, definitely. So first off, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Of course.
Um,
My
Before we
pleasure.
get too into it, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Kind of what inspired you to get into coaching and consulting?
So I have been doing consulting for about 16 years. Basically just because people saw that I had a successful business and were trying to figure out what I had done to create that. And um, it, it has always been, just share what you know. And my other business was my primary business, and I just sort of did it on the side, and I did it for friends, and I just sort of helped out. Then when I made the decision to sell a business that I'd had for 18 years and move here to Portland, Oregon, I had kind of a personal crisis. I was going through a divorce and it wasn't going well. And I had done a lot of self-development through seminar companies, doing all the seminars on all the things, money and relationships and business and success and what all those things mean or whatever. And it sort of failed me in the moment when I really needed it. And I thought, my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm really in a bad place. And as it turned out, I had met a gentleman, his name's Mike Dooley, at the seminar company that I had worked with and for about a decade. And he was having a seminar, and I didn't even know what it was. It didn't matter. I just needed something positive in my life. So I went to the seminar. And as it turned out, it was a seminar on the visualization process that he teaches, much like athletes do and that sort of thing, but he has it sort of dialed in. And I went home from that seminar super pumped and started doing the visualization. And within a few weeks, my entire life just lined up and came together. And I went, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It was, my business had been for sale for 6 or 8 months, and there really weren't any bites. And I came home from that seminar and I called up my broker and I said, I just want to let you know my business is going to sell by the end of the month. Just, prepare yourself. And he sort of laughed at me and said, okay, well, whatever. And as it turned out, it went into bidding wars and it did sell within the week. And I met the love of my life. And then after I went to that seminar, they offered a training to teach what he teaches. And so I went and did the training, just thinking, I don't really know what I'm going to do once my business sells. And I went and did the training, put on my first workshop. And as I was standing up there 5 minutes in, I went, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my purpose. So now I combine the two. I mostly work with entrepreneurs. I mean, I'll work with anybody that is seeking to find out, if there's more to this life than, we've this bill of goods that we've been sold about, working and making money, and that's important and all that. And so now I really consult people and mentor them through the process of getting their internal environment to the place where they can be happy regardless of what's happening outside of themselves, versus the experience that I think most people are having, which is being in reaction or response to everything that's going on outside of them, people, circumstances, events. I help them get, very neutral and grounded inside so that they can experience happy, because that's an inner journey. It's not, doesn't have anything to do with exterior people and places and things.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that, like right now with everything going on, is so important to just be able to throw all of those external things out for a second and kind of focus on what's going on inside. I feel like that's so important.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a year. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. There's been a lot going on so many different levels. But that's life. I mean, life is this way, right? Mm-hmm. It's just really under the microscope right now. But wouldn't it be better to get the inside sorted out so that it doesn't matter what's going on? Pandemic, no pandemic, any financial crisis, no financial crisis, right? We are, I truly believe that we are meant to thrive and be in joy exclusively. That's our birthright. But I don't know very many people besides myself who live that out on a regular basis,
Right.
Most people are just sort of grinding it out, and it's just not the thing, and I think there are a lot of people seeking, to is this it? Cause this doesn't feel that great, and it can't just be, I mean, it's all the cliche stuff, money doesn't buy you happiness. We all know that intellectually, but how do we know that on a visceral level? How do we know that internally so that we can recognize what's important and weed out all this garbage that we spend time worrying about and thinking about, so that we can have a different experience? It's the experience can be this experience of joy all the time. But we are so in our head about things, the brain is just crazy. It's real busy.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you can still that and quiet it down, then you can get the feeling of true peace of mind, right? That's the stillness and the quiet behind the scenes is how I experience it. It's
Hmm.
like, oh. And so a lot of the things that I talk about with clients is really about how do we create space between what's happening externally and our internal experience of it, so that we can just look at it as though it's a movie. So all out here is a movie, and inside I get to experience that from a place of stillness and peace. And then, when you get triggered by emotional responses to people or circumstances, then you can look at those as gifts. Like, oh, so there's a thing right there that made this thing happen for me, which was, I had a emotional experience, then you had a physical experience. And so when that happens and you can look at it and go, oh, this is a gift for me to see there's some area of growth, there's some opportunity for growth there. So that's the piece versus this person did that to me, which is like victim stance, which is saying, you know, that, you're stressing me out, or, this traffic is stressing me out. It's like, I'm choosing to have stress. And why am I choosing that?
Right.
And so it's a different conversation in your head than just being in a reaction to all that's going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
Does that make
No.
sense?
Oh yeah, that makes a lot. That's great. My therapist kind of talked on that like a year ago or something, a couple years ago, where she was like, when you get into those feelings of like overwhelming anger and just stress, try to take a step back mentally and like acknowledge that it's happening as opposed to experiencing it. So then you can just look and be like, oh, look, I'm feeling really stressed right now, as opposed to like blacking out and letting it overtake you. And that to me, that helped so much whenever I was in that position, because like you said, it was like I was experiencing a movie as opposed to just living it.
Yeah, I think that people mistakenly, and it's not their fault, because nobody tells us this stuff,
Right,
right? I mean,
exactly.
like, this is why, you have this platform, and I'm grateful to have a platform that I can speak about these things, because there are people seeking to find a better way. And some of the things I know for sure, one of which is you are not your emotions.
Mm,
You are not your thoughts. Those are just things that are happening, and they're all based on past experiences, traumas, usually, right? The bad stuff. But lots
mhm.
of good stuff happen that are, you're functioning quite well, right? You're surviving all those things. The emotional piece, though, is typically based on a belief structure that's put in place at a young age, and can be based off of something as silly or seemingly small. We're talking like the ages of, by 5 to 8, like, you're set, your belief
Yes.
systems are set based on experiences that you've had. And it can be as simple as, an adult scolding you for whatever, or be quiet, or, and you take that in on a deeper level, and then you make a decision about life based on that.
Hmm.
And the thing is we do that not consciously. So as you continue to get older, it doesn't really intellectually make sense to take this belief system from this 5 or 8-year-old and go ahead and continue to make decisions from it. But nobody ever tells us this stuff. So we don't know that this is what's happening behind the scenes in our mind. And so that's a lot of the work that I do with people, is to explain, like, what's happening here, right? What's happening with the mind, the experience we're having, the filters we've put up, the lens in which we see life is significantly different for each individual, right? My life experience different than yours, different than everybody else's, billions of people, right?
Hmm.
And yet we run around and act like everybody is the same. Like, we have these expectations that, well, in my world, you should behave like this, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what gets us in trouble, right? Because we have these expectations that, like, oh, I did this, so you should say or do this. And when
Hmm.
you don't do that, then I'm going to have an emotional response to it, because that's telling me I have an area to grow. But
Right.
most people don't know that, right? So they're just going like, you made me feel this way, or you did this to me, right? when in fact we're responsible for all those things. And it's okay, like responsible in a super empowering way, right? Like not in a you're to blame. You don't know, it's not your fault because nobody told you this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you learn it, then you get to play this game of life very differently, right? Because it's like, I take personal responsibility for what I'm creating based on my lenses and filters that have been put in place. No judgment there, right? So then it's like, oh, okay, gift just happened. I'm upset about something. I get to take a look at that and go, why am I upset? Not so that you can dig up all the past traumas and all that other garbage, so that you can go, oh, there's a lens or a filter in place that's not serving me because I'm having a bad emotional response. And by bad, I mean low level, right? Like stress, anxiety, worry, all overwhelm, all
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It, it I'm wow, I can't even speak right now. I'm sure like it's such a difficult thing to break out of that mold that you've like biologically made unintentionally for yourself. Um like yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm just just stating like yeah,
Well,
it's
actually, I think I know where you were going with that.
mm-hmm.
Here's the deal. So, in my estimation, change happens because of three things. One is awareness, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, everybody's all like, oh, I had this thing happen and then I woke up, right? That's on purpose, right?
Right.
Doesn't have to be that way, but it does happen that way often because that's what triggers like enough. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the awareness piece. The second piece is strategy or tools to uh, do that thing differently, right? And that comes from these kinds of conversations and your platform, and people that are seeking will find that. And thirdly, which is the most important and spoiler alert, the most difficult part
Right.
is the practice of the new way of being, right? Because we've practiced this other way of being based on these belief systems that we put in a long time ago. So we've been practicing those ways so long, it doesn't feel right, and I'll use that in quotes, feel right to do it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that it's not going to feel right. And it's actually the not feel right that's the sweet spot. So when you not feel good, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the area. And
Right.
so it's those three things, but it's the practice of, and I think, societally, we're certainly looking for the quick fix and all those things. This is not a quick fix type of a thing.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't need to be excruciatingly painful either. But there is a vigilance to it that creates the different experience. And that's getting to that process of understanding first, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Secondly, what a great gift. Let me use a strategy or tool or seek out something that helps me, reframe that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then third, practice that new way over and over and over again. And I liken it to, like, you ever watch the space shuttle take off?
Yeah, yeah. There was
Like,
one just recently, right?
oh, I don't know. But I mean, they're all the same, right? It's like massive boosters, right?
Yeah.
Like the rocket is like, going up, lots of resistance, all the way till it gets to outer space. And once it gets to outer space, it's like dumped the big boosters, it's dumped all the stuff. It's out there, it's going, tens of thousands of miles per hour with very little fuel
Mm-hmm.
because it burned all its fuel trying to get out to outer space, right? It gets
Yeah.
out there, there's zero resistance. So it has very little fuel, zero resistance. It can still go, I think it's like 17,500 miles per hour or whatever it is,
Man. Yeah.
without hardly any fuel. But look at
Mm-hmm.
all that, like, boom, right? All the way up, resistance. boom, outer space, no more resistance. And so what I like to tell people is, yeah, there's going to be resistance in the beginning because you are reframing something that is dug in, that you've practiced so long, so many times, right? So know that, but at one point there will be small shifts each time you make the choice to do the new thing. So you make the choice, then you make the choice again, then you make the choice again, and then the choice gets easier and easier, and then it becomes the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, like, I mean, I'm sort of on this like path right now about addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm talking about addiction across the board. Like, we all are addicted to stuff, right? I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol or food, sex. But right now I'm writing a book on, it's called Addicted to Fear, how to overcome and prevent anxiety, worry, and overwhelm, because that's an addiction too. So like, these beliefs are kind of addictions, right? We practiced them a whole bunch. They've created some results that work, some that definitely do not, right? But it's hard. So you have to keep choosing, and that's how addictions get kind of nicked, is how you just keep choosing each time. You choose again, choose a new way. And that's what this is like. And it's very much addictive in the fact that when you practice certain ways of being, you release chemicals in your body. When people have anxiety, well, I'll give you a little background. I had an anxiety disorder.
Right.
And I think I may have mentioned it to you before, but I recognized how I got it. And I got it through the counseling process. And this is no fault. And I'm absolutely not against counseling by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But I recognized why, because the counseling process I was in was, saying that story over and over again, right? Like all the bad stuff that happens. Like,
right. You just keep digging it up.
Yeah. And so on a subconscious level, we're unable to determine subconsciously, the mind, right, is unable to determine whether that thing is happening right now or whether it's from the past. So it automatically assumes it's happening now.
Right.
So when you continue to tell that story, whatever that story is for you, and everybody has a story, right? That story, keeping that story alive, is what is most of the root of the anxiety, worry, overwhelm piece, right? It's using that story, not intentionally or even consciously, right? That story is dictating the experience we're having. And when we can become further from the story and recognize that you are not the story, you're the person, you experienced it, it happened, but that is not who you actually are. The essence of your being has nothing to do with that story.
Right.
It was an experience you had. And yet, I mean, I'm sure you've met a ton of people. They think that's who they are. This is my story. I was abused. My parent was a alcoholic, or, all the things. And I'm not saying none of those are all heavy things. But the work that I do with people is give them the opportunity to release that story and recognize that the essence of who they are has nothing to do with that story. It's just something that happened. And the further we can get from the story, like stop relating to it and stop relating to other people that have had the same story, stop saying it in our minds, saying it out loud, then we can be let further away from it, recognize that happened, and attribute the good things that happened from it, but not have it be who we are.
Right.
So all these, like, getting back to the addiction piece, that is all about the story creating chemical releases in the body. So that's that mind body coming together, right? And so it's remembering those things. Remember the story, all the chemicals happen. And so that's happening for people over and over again.
Right.
And that's how I got the anxiety disorder, was through the telling of that story over and over and over
Mhm.
again. It got very Pavlovian. It was kind of crazy, actually, like
Right.
to the point where I was like crying on the way to the counselor's office, right?
Oh man.
I was in sobbing in the waiting room to get in. I hadn't even said a word yet. And I'm in the waiting room, like bursting into tears, because
Yeah.
I'm about to tell the story again.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's why I dreaded, because when I first started getting therapy, I'd go to like multiple different ones. I dreaded every time. I was like, I gotta restart what I just uncovered and live through it again. Yeah, that kind of takes me back to the beginning where we talked about where, like we mentioned, separating yourself from your external things. It's almost the same kind of thing where you got to strip yourself from that experience, acknowledge that it happened, and move on, as opposed to blacking out and living through it again.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly the same. It is
Mhm.
absolutely exactly the same. It's just, again, nobody tells us this stuff. So it's like not your fault.
Right, of
And
course.
but recognize that that story lives in you, and it is often being lived out on a daily basis.
Hmm.
you know I'm sure you've met people that are like, oh, that person is offending me, right?
Yeah, a lot.
And it's like, it's not personal. That person is just being them, and you're taking it personally because of some story that's in the background of your mind all day long, every day. And so
Right.
when I work with clients, the first thing I say is, tell me your story. And they tell me all the things, right? All the yucky stuff. And then I say, no disrespect to the people that are in that story, but you're not allowed to tell that story anymore.
Mm.
You're not allowed to tell it to me. You're not allowed to tell it to yourself. And you're certainly not allowed to come into a relationship with people through that story, right? Because we like to do that. Like, oh, when I was a kid, my dad was an alcoholic or whatever. Oh, my dad was too, right? And then
Mm.
boom,
You
relationship
bond.
built.
Right.
Yeah. No, you don't get to bond over those things anymore, because that's not a sorry, that's not a good place to bond from.
Right. Yeah.
That's not a quality bonding, right? That's a, let's be miserable together, and misery does love company, and but not in my world, you
Mm.
know and the thing is, I mean, it's crazy. I practice everything that I teach. I've gone through myself, and that's why I teach it, right? It's
Right.
because I don't want anybody else to feel the way that I felt.
Hmm.
I literally, with my anxiety disorder, was holed up in my apartment for nearly a year, and would only leave to do the absolute necessary things: go to my counselor, go to the grocery store. And sometimes I'd even have to ditch the grocery store because I was so overwhelmed by lights and people and stimulus. And I mean, I'd have like full grocery carts and just bail. I'm
Mm.
like, I
Yeah.
gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's not a place to live. That is the most narrowest of existences. And I never want anybody to ever feel that, if I can help them. And this is part of it, is releasing that story. Like, stop telling it. It's not you. It doesn't create value. It's not where you want to go. And honestly, at this point, when people ask me about my past, it's as though I'm recalling. I mean, it would take me, like, I would have to sit down and really think about some of the stuff
Hmm.
to like conjure it up.
Right.
And that brings me to another piece, with people who have anxiety and overwhelm, which is, let's face it, is a lot of people, especially these days.
Yeah. Right.
One of the issues that they have is this overthinking piece, right? Like, thinking things to death, thinking that they're going to actually come up with a solution. And the reality is, um, or what I've noticed with clients that I work with, because often work with people who have anxiety issues, is this, the constant thinking. And it's that thinking and relating that just gets you into trouble. It's just a lot of work, and it's
Mm.
exhausting to
Yeah.
try and think all these things all day long, every day.
Yeah. Right. Your brain needs a break sometimes.
all the time. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, my brain's super quiet now. Like, I don't have a lot of, really don't have much going on up there most of the time, to be honest. When I'm seeing clients or teaching a class, as crazy as this might sound, the sensation I get is, I mean, even when I'm talking on podcasts or with other individuals about these sorts of having these kinds of conversations, um, it's almost like I don't have a filter anymore and just things come out, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right.
um, it's not, I'm not, thinking ahead, I'm going to say this or I'm going to say that. It's like,
Hmm.
no, because I know this on a deep level. I know this to be true, that it's possible to live this way, to have the quiet in your mind and the stillness in the background all the time. But it's not practiced much, or I haven't seen it practiced much.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Well, like you said, it's because no one talks about it. It's almost I've rarely heard people go, you got to work towards like silencing your mind. I've almost never heard that. Like it's not talked about nearly enough that like the practices you share and the practices you've done, I've almost never heard of these things.
Really?
Yeah, no, because like I've never heard it advertised to have a quiet mind, which is now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of crazy. I feel like that's ideal, but my brain is like this all the time, and I think it has something to do with like this hardwiring, and you've mentioned this earlier, but like this idea that society wants you to work, and you think, and act. It's like you have to do 9 to 5, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I think that's just hardwired into a lot of our brains, that we have to work all the time, we have to think about work all the time. um, and it's just not talked about enough, where you have to look back and go, just chill out for a second, give your brain some time to relax every day, and like give it a little restart.
I'm a huge proponent of meditating.
Mm.
And, I mean, it has, for whatever reason, people say, oh, it's woo woo or whatever. I'm all about woo woo. You know what? Because
Mm.
this other way is not working. People are freaked out
No.
and upset all the time. That's not working. You
Mm-mm.
meet woo woo people, they're pretty
They're
happy,
happy
right?
all the time.
Yeah. So,
Like, yeah.
I get kind of sick of that whole like idea of the woo woo thing. And the reality is I can have a conversation all day long about business,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the thing that lights me up. So, we talk about like creating meaning in your life. You want to be doing the things that are lighting you up all the time, not a 9 to 5 job where you're just grinding it out. That's not
Right.
the thing.
Yeah.
And we sort of got sold this bill of goods about, success looks like, this house and this car and this neighborhood with this kind of job and all the things, and I'm here to tell you, I've had all those things. Happiness was like a blip.
Mm.
It happened. And then I went to something else. I was like, oh, I had all the success and the money and all the things I wanted. Then I went to, let me punish my body, right? So
Right.
let me first start, over exercising and doing CrossFit, and then doing triathlons, and then training for a half Ironman, and then getting a concussion because like that's not the way either. I literally was like, train for an iron, or not an Ironman, a regular triathlon,
Mm-hmm.
get to the finish line, go, oh my God, I did that. And then I would go home and look for the next thing.
Just nonstop.
That's not happiness. Happiness is not a location externally, it's internal. And until we can get that message on a very deep level, this rigmarole is going to continue because we keep seeing all the images. Happiness looks like success, and success looks like this, and it means this car and that neighborhood and all those things, and this relationship and all this perfection BS that is not real.
Mm-hmm.
What's real is this right here, this conversation. This is real.
Mm-hmm.
This is about internally creating an environment that is unaffected by the external environment at all, like
Right.
nobody and no thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that comes from things like meditation. That comes from quieting the mind. And what happens when your mind is quiet? Guess what? It's peaceful,
Mm.
right?
Right.
And when you can start your day in a place like that, or through a visualization process, I teach a visualization process that just gets you on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, the visualization process without all the details. If I asked you to visualize your life, the day in the life of everything you ever wanted, and I'm talking all the stuff, right? Like the car, the house, the relationship, the money. I mean, I love abundance. Don't get me wrong. I got nothing wrong with money. Money is great. I love
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But it's not the thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the thing is we want that thing because we think that that thing is going to make us feel good.
Right.
Like
It's
we
gonna
want that
feel.
because we think when we have that, we will be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know this intellectually, but we don't live it. The happy is not there. It's that blip I talked about. It happens for a minute and then it's like, what next?
Right.
Right? But I want the what next in your life to be like, what next? I'm going to impact more people. I'm going to share with them that they have value. They don't need to do anything or have anything or be anybody to have value because your existence matters regardless. So if
Right.
that's the case, then maybe you could look at your life and go, what is my unique gift I have to offer this world? Because I believe everybody has a unique gift, and concentrate on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because part of what makes people happy is helping other people, right? So when you find your unique gift, you can help other people feel good. And guess what? You feel really good too. It's
Yeah.
like, and that's as simple as it is, but it goes completely against everything that we're taught. So
I
it's
know.
like, it sort of doesn't make sense, but it does, right? I mean, on a deeper level, you understand what I'm saying. It's
Of
true.
of course.
Yeah. And I think most people do too. But then the next challenge becomes, okay, if you understand that and you are willing to put in the work, the practice of it, you're still going to be butting against a lot of people, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because most people don't think like this and don't live their life this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to fill yourself up too. You know, that means having the people around you that believe the same stuff as you and tapping into, you know, people that write meaningful books that speak to your soul and having these kinds of conversations and, you know, helping people. I mean, and doesn't that sound great? Doesn't that sound meaningful?
That sounds way better.
Right? Than
Like
like
way better.
grinding it out at a 9 to 5.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, no. What's crazy to me is that, like you said, the yoo-hoos, the woohoos, they're like society calls them crazy, which is so baffling because they're at peace in mind, they're happy, they're like comfortable with who they are, and society looks at that and goes, "That's weird. Like, don't be like them."
Right?
What? Isn't that what we're striving to be? Comfortable with ourselves and happy with who we are?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but that's kind of like that. It's so weird, right? I mean, it's like we get that message, but nobody follows through on it, right?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
intellectually we understand a lot of these things, but nobody ever does the how do we get there? How do we understand this on a deeper level? How do we actually practice this way of being versus the other? And you know, and that's kind of the challenging part is the butting up against, right? You know, not having well, I don't, for lack of a better word, like the role models, you know, I mean, there
Mm.
are definitely people out there that are, you know, would say I'm preaching to the choir, but they're still few and far between. And so it's sort of like forging a new road, right? It's kind of
Right.
paving a new path to a different way and trying to understand how do I, you know, keep recognizing this as the truth versus the other, because the other one's sort of like in our face all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
geez, like, you know, all the social media stuff and I'm 100% for, like, I love Instagram.
Oh, me, yeah.
Like, it's my favorite, and it's my favorite because I share a lot of content on there.
Mhm.
That makes me feel really good, and people respond and just go, man, I just want to let you know. Like, even like really like old friends of mine that I haven't even connected with in a really long time. I had a friend just the other day text me, and she just wanted to say, I just want to tell you, like, when I get the opportunity to listen to your videos, like, it means so much to me. Like, you have no idea, like, how your videos get me through, a horrible day. Or I have a friend who's going through some real crisis stuff, and she's just like, man, I just look forward to that video. Like, whatever you're going to say, like, you
Yeah.
have no idea what that means to me. Like, how awesome is that
That's the best
opportunity?
feeling, man.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
A guy I knew from, man, how old was I? This was like over a decade ago, the last time I saw this guy. And he FaceTimed me like a week or two ago saying how like he was like on the brink of wanting to, commit suicide, and like
Mm.
just seeing my posts like made him stop and think, and that was like, it was overwhelming. I was like, man,
Mm.
like it's the best feeling in the world to know you're making a difference. It's overwhelming, but like just helping other people, there's no better feeling than that. You can't give me any of the cars in the world, like all the cars in the world won't match that feeling. I mean, I'm also not that obsessed with cars, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I don't
I
know a
get
thing
the,
about
and yeah.
cars, but you get the point.
I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
man.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, I think I talk about this all the time. It's like deathbed stuff, right? It's like,
Mm,
we know when we're on our deathbed, we're not sitting there going, like, I wish I had worked more, or I wish I had made more money, or I
right.
wish, I had more stuff,
Mhm.
like, obviously not.
Right.
But the thing is, I mean, this is what's really been baffling me lately. Like, I get on these weird like ideas, and I think, like, um, if we truly understood that this moment right here, right now, was the only guarantee that we have, like, I could walk out and get hit by a bus, I could have a
Mm,
heart, whatever, all the things that could
right.
happen in this very moment. The building could collapse, whatever.
Mhm.
If we truly understood that this moment was all that absolutely mattered, would we live our lives the way that we do?
Right.
And I'm saying no.
Mm,
I mean, I even struggle with that sometimes, and I'm pretty darn happy a lot,
right.
like, I'm pretty high vibration,
Mhm.
and I even go, wait a minute, if this is the only moment I have, is this how I want to spend it, right?
Mhm.
You think about people who get a diagnosis of, they have so long to live or whatever. What do? They do all the bucket list stuff. Like, can you live your life like that? I mean, I guess you could.
You could.
Um, but it's not those things either, right? It's
Mhm.
the feeling that you think you're going to have when you do those things. So why not cultivate that feeling now, here, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of what's going on? That's the thing.
Mhm.
It's not the activity, it's not the car, it's not the money, it's not the status. It is the internal work.
Right. Yeah, no, they did this, I don't know if it was a study or an interview or something. I wish I could go back to it, but uh this, like, the dialogue that people on their deathbed were having with their family members, and the number one thing that they said they wish they had done differently was worried less. It was never, I wish I could have bought that, house, or I wish I could have made this money. It was, I wish I would have worried about the little things less. And I feel like that definitely doesn't get talked about enough. You don't realize like how much you're worrying until like later, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, worry is thinking that we know what the outcome is going to be.
Hmm.
If we actually took the time to recognize how much we worried about things that did not happen, right?
Yeah.
We would be shocked. I
Right.
would estimate, this is just my own estimation, that somewhere between 95 and 98% of the things we worry about don't come to fruition. But
Right.
we never go back and go, oh, that didn't make sense for me to waste all that energy and time and experience, right? Because one thing to waste all the energy, but the experience is crappy.
Right. Yeah.
Being worried sucks.
You
It's
never
not
go back.
fun.
Yeah. You never go
But we
back and go,
don't. Yeah, we don't go back and go, that sucked.
I know.
And the thing I thought was going to happen didn't happen
Right.
98% of the time, even more, I think, probably like 99% of the time.
Mhm.
That thing we think's going to happen doesn't happen. And yet we continue on doing the stuff thinking, oh, this scenario is happening, so this is what the outcome's going to be.
Mhm.
Like, and the reality is we have zero idea of what the outcome's going to be. Like, yeah, maybe we've had a similar experience, but the nuances in this life are so complex.
Mm.
There's so many, like, people are so complex. Like, my parents have been married for like almost 40 years, my second marriages. And I asked them, you know, do you ever have does the other person ever say something that surprises you? And they're like, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, right.
Why is that? Because we have all these nuances of things that have happened in our lives that, although we like to tell the same stories over and over again about, you know, my childhood and these things happened, and I, you know, not just the bad stuff, but all the regular stuff too.
Right.
We can't know that, you know, this other person touched their lives for a moment and got them to thinking about something a little bit differently that wouldn't show up except in this one conversation about baseball, you
Mhm.
know. And
Yeah.
it's like, we think that every, you know, and it's, so this is part of the brain, right? The brain is phenomenal. It's so fantastic. But what it does is it's a huge computer that's organizing information, right?
Mm.
For the purposes of, um, well, for making it easier to recall information, right? So that we don't have to reinvent the wheel a bunch of times over and over and over again, right? Which is fantastic. It's very helpful in a lot of ways. It is unhelpful on the emotional side of things because we tend to sort of put situations and people into boxes,
Mm.
and then they surprise us because
Yeah.
of those nuances. We think, oh, I filed them away as, you know, super conservative or way uptight or whatever, or woo-woo, or, you know, whatever the thing is, right? And then all of a sudden they say something totally out of left field and you're like, wait, what? Why
Yeah.
did you say that? Right? Because we're complex people. We got all kinds of stuff going on,
Right.
and we've had all kinds of experiences and exposure. And, you know, and some of that, you know, this is all like caveman stuff, right? That's all
Mhm.
the like survival piece, but we're clearly past survival at this particular juncture. Like, it's not, don't go out of the cave because you're going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. It's like, you know, we have all the things now. We have the basic things. And so that piece is not helpful. It's
Right.
helpful in the non-reinventing the wheel stuff, but then we don't delineate out that, oh, this is not one of those scenarios. And so we continue to like put people in situations and boxes and think we know what the outcome's going to be, but we don't.
Mm.
But we never go back and go, oh, how come that didn't turn out how I wanted, or I thought it was going to because it happened before like this, or so that's kind of what gets us into trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's so many, just thinking about it now, like there's so many points where I'd worry for like months about something and it would go well as opposed to what I was thinking it was going to go. And then I'd be like, oh, well, time to worry about the next thing. Like I never went back to address it. It was just constant worry like that. Yeah, that's so like, it's such a good thing to do. It's so tough. Like, what am I trying to say here? Like, how do we get how do we break that biological mold that we have where we're like hardwired to worry based on like, you know, like you said, caveman experiences? How do we break from that mold and kind of move towards um just accepting it and like letting life take its toll and just enjoying the moment now?
Part of it is the recognition of what we talked about, which is that didn't happen how I thought it was going to, and recognizing that we can't know.
Mm-hmm.
what we are responsible for is the what and why of our life. The how is dictated by other sources. You know, we think, oh, if I work really hard, I'm going to have success. If I, do this thing this way, then this is going to happen. And we have zero control, and we keep acting as though we do.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of why people are overwhelmed, and anxiety and worry and all those things is because I did this thing, this was supposed to happen, and it didn't. And that's the piece you're talking about, the resistance to what is.
Right.
I call it the isness of being, right?
Mm.
Being what is versus trying to shape and form things that we have zero control over. We have control over one thing. That is how we are experiencing this life. That's it. Everything else is up for grabs.
Right.
I don't care if, you're taking a class and there's a blueprint to marketing, or there's a blueprint to entrepreneurship, or there's a blueprint to like living this life. There isn't, other than the one thing you have control over is you and how you're experiencing. Everything else is going to happen how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can continue to act as though you know what's happening, and FYI, you do not. And secondly, butting up against what does happen, right? So those two things are happening all the time.
Right.
How about just allow things to happen and just treat it like the movie we talked about earlier? I'm here, solid and grounded in me. I feel good inside me. I've done the things, right? I've practiced the beingness that I need to be, that's different than the way I was before. And then whatever happens, happens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nobody talks about these things.
No.
It's like, I mean, I don't know about you. Like, my parents didn't come home and talk about all the things that went right all day long, right?
No,
they came
never.
home, I sat in traffic. I had the client said this, a coworker did that, right? This woman was rude on the phone, whatever, politics, all this stuff, right?
Right.
Versus like the billions of things that are going like way right in our lives, like every single day, right? Like, I have food and clothing and shelter and heat. My heater just came on. I have this technology. I get to share the things I love to talk about with people and hope that I can make an impact in their lives, right?
Right.
I mean, I've got this life like nicked. Like, I'm psyched, right? I get to do all the things that bring meaning and purpose in my life. But do we talk? I have running water. I mean, how much would that suck to not have running water?
Oh, man.
Right? I have the stuff. I have all these wonderful things. Everything is conspiring in my favor. Like, everything has worked out up until this point. Has there been moments that sucked? Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
But in the overall, if we look at our lives have you ever had those moments where you just sit down and you're like, oh my God, like, I met that person, then this thing happened, I took that class, and then this other thing happened. You ever see that? Like, how did that happen? Did I get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
That's happening all the time.
All the
time.
The
universe is on our side. It is completely conspiring on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And we're concerned about the few little things that aren't going well, right? I had to sit in traffic. This person didn't use their signal. I could tell you all the car, because I used to be the person that was like cussing at people the whole time I was driving.
I feel that. Yeah.
And now I'm the one people are cussing at. Like, why is she driving so slow? Why is she? And I'm like, hey, how's it going?
That's so funny. Yeah. Man, yeah.
It's all those things.
That's so funny because like you said, listing all those things like heating, shelter, water. But let's focus on the extra 10 minutes in traffic that we spent coming home. Let's worry about that first. It's crazy.
Or the thing that kills me now is people screw up and they end up in the middle of the intersection, right? In traffic. And I mean, they don't already feel like an idiot, right? And then people are honking at him. And I'm just like, really?
What is
you
the
don't
honking?
Think that person
What's that
feels like no, nothing, right? It's just, I think we're just like, people are just like on edge, you know what I mean? They're
Mhm.
just like waiting for the thing so they can just unload on somebody. And
I
it's
know.
like, oh my gosh, people, let's try and like handle our own junk. And then, you know, because that's what we do, is we project all our stuff all day long on everybody else.
Right.
That's what we're doing. It's not, again, you know, nobody tells us this stuff. Nobody
Mhm.
says like, you are, you know, you think that everybody else is an idiot, but actually that's your own stuff, right?
Right.
And I posted on Instagram the other day because I was listening to, I don't know, do you know who Gary Zukov is?
Gary Zukov.
He
No,
wrote the book, The Seed of the Soul.
I
Have
have
you read
not.
this book?
No.
Oh,
Should
this
I?
book is a life changer. Oh my God.
Let me
It's
grab a
like,
pen.
yeah. So he was talking about, what did he say? Everything is returned to sender, right?
Right.
So like everything that's going on for you is like, you know, that finger that's pointing back at you, return to you. Like you are the thing. It's not out there. It's you. Oh, this thing happened. Nope, still you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
This other thing happened. Nope, that's you. That's all you. Your experience, your filters, your lenses, you know.
Mhm.
And we love to just say, oh, well, that person did this and made me feel this way and all that. But actually, it's still you.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's, you know, and I talk to a lot of people about relationships, you know, they're like, I want to find the love of my life and I want, you know, and I think, what are you doing to create that environment in you?
Right.
Right? Like we love to write the list about who that fantastic person's going to be. And my first thing is, who are you going to be in that relationship? And why don't you nurture that now and become that person? Because that's the person that will attract that list
Mhm.
of wonderful things, right?
Right. I actually just read that somewhere where it was like, you know, you can write a list of the perfect partner for you, but are you living up to that standard yourself? Because a lot of us aren't. I know when I wasn't, when I was originally like, oh, I just want to meet someone, and then I'd write down what I wanted in a partner. I was like, I don't meet any of this. Like, that's not me. So why do I expect people like that to want to be with a person like that? It's yeah.
The other big misnomer is this idea that two halves come together to make a whole. That's BS. The
Mm,
reality is you come whole, you
right.
as a person come whole. You work on this relationship here, and that other one is coming
Hmm.
regardless. You don't even have to ask too much.
Right.
Because when you become that high vibrational and you got all the goods, that person is around the corner. Any moment you're going to meet that person.
Right.
Um, so it's not concentrating on the other person. It's like, how do I become that solid individual? How do I, you know, feel so good in me and become so whole in me that I don't need the other person to fill anything? It's just a partner to experience this life with.
Hmm.
That's it. It's not, I don't need you to make me feel better about me because I feel good about me without you.
Right.
I don't need any of, you know, I don't need whatever you think you've got or whatever I think you might have, or, and it changes the game in terms of, you know, what you're attracted to too, because, and what's attracted to you, right? Because we have these patterns. So we're in relationship one way. That's across the board, friendships, romantically, family, right? And these are the things that we're always trying to get over, right? Is our relationship with our
Yeah.
families.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that relationship is sort of what, you know, dictated the relationships that you have moving forward.
Hmm.
We also don't take the time to like look at those relationships and go, oh, I'm like this in my family. That's actually showing up in other areas of my life as well.
Hmm.
And it's not any different. It's exactly the same because we only know how to be in relationship one way, which was how we were taught.
Right.
And so that's another sort of undoing that happens too when you get clear on, you know, what does that relationship look like, feel like, seem like, and who is that person? then you go again, return to sender. How am I going to be those things? How am I going to do relationships differently? And then guess what happens is you attract different people when you become that whole person. You attract whole people. You don't attract the, crazy relationships and you recognize them quicker if you do attract them, and you start to go, oh yeah, that feels very much like this other relationship I had that didn't turn out well.
Right. Yeah. And then if you don't acknowledge that and you just move to the next one, you start to become like dependent because you're not happy with who you are. So you're like, oh, being with this person will make me happy. And then you get dependent. And that just gets so messy.
Well, and the thing is when you're whole, then you have solid boundaries in place because you know who you are and what's acceptable for you, and you don't allow that. What I see often happen is, people will come to me and they'll tell me these crazy stories about the relationship they're in. And I'll just go like, in my mind, I think to myself, if you heard somebody tell this story to you, right, you would go, that's whack.
Yeah.
Like that is not right.
Right.
Right. But they can't see it because what happens is relationships are sneaky, right? That it doesn't all, that ending point where it was all weird and crazy, it didn't get there just like that, right? There was a series of little things that happened along the way where you allowed things to happen. And when you are whole in you and you have a boundary set, and this is not a boundary to keep people out. This is a boundary where you completely understand who you are and the kind of life that you would like to live and the kind of people that you would like to spend your time around. Not judging, not better, worse, whatever. I don't believe in those things, good, bad. It creates a different kind of relationship that allows people to be fully them, and you get to be fully you regardless. It doesn't say, hey, I have a boundary there. It's not, I hear people say that and act that way. That's not the kind of boundaries I'm talking about. I'm talking about you having a deep understanding of yourself internally so that you can understand when people are treading, because boundaries is a huge deal and it's not always real obvious when a boundary is being overrun, or it's not just the obvious ones where it's like, oh, you just treated me like a doormat. It's more sneaky than that, and so having awareness around that is super important as well.
Right, definitely. So how do we get the general public to figure out these things, to know these things?
We keep having conversations like this, and people ask, like, what do I do next? The next thing is it's not of course I'd love for it to be a global movement, and it is. It is being globalized through these sorts of platforms. But it's really, the work is with you. It's always going to be you. It's always going to be return to sender. When you get right with you, then anything and everything is possible. That it's that ripple effect. It's the drop in the water that like goes out exponentially. Just us having this conversation and having energy in this high vibrational state is bringing this to others around us. Just, in this building that I'm in your town, in my town, it matters. Who you are and the vibration you carry matters without a word being said.
Right.
And then to have a platform like this, to have these conversations, it's huge. It's just going to grow and grow and grow. It may seem slow, and it is slow. Like think about the political process. Think about change in general. Change is slow to happen.
Oh yeah.
And yet we have, again, an expectation that it's going to happen overnight. Well, if everybody understood that organic food was good for you, then they should all be on board and purchase it, right? Well, not everybody still buys organic food. We all know that it's better for you, but it's not important to some people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to concentrate on the people that are seeking this, like, I've had enough. I'm fed up. This isn't the life that I want to live. I'm unhappy. I want to be not just happy for the like brief moment that I achieve a goal, or, have a moment with a family member or whatever, or have a gathering or whatever. Like, I'm talking about true internal cultivated joy on a daily basis. That matters. So the place to start is with us getting happy and joyful inside of us. And then that just carries out. The problem that we have is that we don't get a lot of feedback. So we don't get the feedback that, oh, I looked that person in the eye and said, hi, how are you today? And I treated them with value, whether it was a homeless person or the grocery clerk.
Mm-hmm.
And that made a difference and an impact in their life, because like you said, like they were going to commit suicide, or they had a really bad day, or they just needed some hope.
Right.
And just by me looking you in the eye and saying, how are you today? And acknowledging you and recognizing you as your being, not as the clerk or the homeless person or the whoever, that matters. But we don't get the feedback. But just know it matters. Your beingness matters. Your vibration matters. It's making an impact. And having a show like this is making an impact, whether you hear the feedback or not.
Right.
It is happening.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to acknowledge that when you don't see it. That's the toughest part.
Yeah, and it goes back to that thing we were talking about before. It's like, not everybody lives this way. So it can feel like this butting against, or like it's easy to get back into old patterns of thinking and behaving. And I just encourage anybody who's seeking, just keep seeking, keep for me, even like a practice for me daily is I listen to or read something that speaks to my soul on a very deep level, like something where that feeling you get where you're like, I know this to be true. I find those people that speak to me that way, and then I regularly expose myself to those things, because it requires that. And I mean, I think you can tell I'm pretty excited about this stuff, and I have a lot of energy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to fill myself up, because that's not, everybody's experience. And because I know this to be true on a very deep level, and that I know my purpose is to help people understand these things and live a joyful, fulfilled, purpose-filled life with a lot of meaning, then that is my work, is for me to be filled up and keep sharing it with as many people who will listen.
Love that. That's awesome. I think my only question left would be, there's this big one that I'm kind of highlighting for this season of my show. Excuse me. And it's kind of circled around, we mentioned it before, where there's this idea that we have to work, and success is money and cars and all of that. And lately in the pandemic, like you see, even at the beginning, you'd see on social media, like, yeah, we're locked down. What are you going to do about it? Like, this is your chance to really succeed, really get the money. And that adds a lot of extra stress for a lot of people who may have taken the pandemic like not too well, rightfully so, of course. So what would you say to people who may be feeling anxious or stressed about the fact that they may have not done anything quote unquote significant during these last 8-9 months?
I think it gets back to this piece about value, right? You have value because you exist. How do I know that? I know that because we all came from something, whether you want to call it God, divinity, the universe, star stuff, whatever. We came from something, and whatever it is that created all of this, we have a part of it, of us in it, or of that in us, is what I meant to say. And knowing that, like, we're all like the essence, just because we exist, that is the value. It's not success. It's not, and whatever success means, like, this idea of success is just like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's like, why do I need my business to be successful? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because part of that is an ego thing, right? Because society says that if I'm going to be doing business, I should be successful. Well, I decided what success is for me is if I spend my day having these kinds of conversations where I can help another human being have a better experience in this life, that's success. If money comes from that, fantastic. I'm psyched.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't, it won't stop me, because I am clear that this is what I'm here to do. So this idea of success, I think, is like almost like the keeping up with the Joneses kind of idea, right? It's like, my neighbor, do I deserve to be in this neighborhood? Do I deserve to have these things? Can I afford these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying like go become destitute. But what I am saying is that things are mostly working out for us, but we're not paying attention to that part. We're
Right.
still somehow seeking external things to make us feel good internally. And I'm asking you to do the opposite. I'm asking you to internally align with you, the deepest part of you, and then go forth. If you're doing that, I don't see how you could go wrong. I honestly don't know. Maybe you have to take some lame job or whatever to pay the bills. So what? If you're right with you and deeply aligned with you, you will find that way to make your impact on this world. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be some superstar or, in fact, I don't believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people that I've met that are the least superstar-ish have been the most impactful and profound to me.
Right.
Because of how they've gone about doing this life. And we like to say that, society puts a lot of pressure on us for all these things, success and all the things. You do not have to accept that. You get to define what success looks like for you. In fact, I don't even like that word anymore, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It has so much baggage with it because it's attached to money and things and a lifestyle and all that things. And don't get me wrong, I love my lifestyle. I love to do fun stuff. I love to spend money. I love to travel. I like to do all the things. But without it, it doesn't change my inner experience. And so I guess what I'm asking your audience to consider is, or not to consider, what societally is saying. Like, what is your society telling you about you? Like, what is it saying you need to have in order to be happy? What is it telling you you need to do in order to be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And decide on a deep level, does that resonate with you? Does having things really equal happiness? Does having a specific job or making a certain amount of money or having, a certain looking relationship, does that mean something to you? And if it doesn't, then you decide what those things mean. You decide what success or achievement looks like.
Right.
You get to decide those things. And that's a tough conversation to have. Trust me, I've had it many times with myself. But the reality is I don't, those, and here's your gauge. Does it make you feel good or not? That's it.
Mm.
If somebody else's idea of success doesn't make you feel good, then ditch it and create one that makes sense to you.
Right.
And it could look like lots of money, but that's not the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I like those things too. But ultimately, if if this is the last moment that we have, that's not the thing, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Where can my
Oh, and the other thing I'd like to say is be kind and gentle to yourselves. Oh my gosh.
right?
You're a beautiful soul. You matter. You're lovely. Your intentions are in place. That's enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? Be nice to yourself. Quit beating yourself up over stuff. Perfection doesn't exist. Do your best. That's enough.
Right.
I'm not saying killing yourself. I'm saying do what you know is right to the best of your ability where you're at right now. It's perfect. You're perfect. This world is perfect. It may not feel like it sometimes, but it absolutely is in your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that.
Yeah, definitely don't. Where can my viewers find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Erin Mac, MAC LLC. That is my business. And there's a ton of content on my site or whatever. It is intentional because I want to help as much as I can. And if you want to reach out through that, you can get me pretty quickly. Or my website is erin-mac.com. There's some content on there, videos and things as well, and some ways to contact me, get on a newsletter, that sort of thing. And what I would say is if any of this resonated with you and maybe I didn't resonate with you, keep seeking. There are people out there that have the same information so that you can hear it however you need to hear it where you're at. Don't stop seeking. This life is beautiful. It is your birthright. Keep finding it.
I love that. And with that, we are done. Erin, thank you so much again for joining me. I really appreciate this.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for providing a platform for me to talk about all the things I love to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had fun.
Sweet. So glad.
And to all my viewers, I will see you guys next time.
Hey guys, thank you for watching another episode of my show. I really appreciate you guys. For more episodes, please click this little tab button if you're on YouTube. It's going to be all the episodes. If you want to subscribe, it's right down below. If you're on podcast platforms listening, please subscribe, give 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Let's keep this conversation going. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.